The entire AI industry is propped up by what feels like financial engineering rather than engineering, and it's created this sort of circular economy where companies can pump their stock price by just passing what effectively feels like the same cash back and forth amongst themselves. And it's not made better by the fact that a Harvard economist has stated that US GDP growth would be just 0.1% annualized when removing AI companies from the calculation. Here's the timeline. Roughly in order, the US government bought 10% of Intel for $8.9 billion of taxpayer money, including backdated money, presumably so Intel CEO Lip-Bu Tan could keep his job after US President Donald Trump said he should resign days before they became BFFs. Weeks later, GPU cloud provider and NVIDIA sugar baby CoreWeave disclosed a $6.3 billion order from NVIDIA on top of NVIDIA's existing billions of dollars of CoreWeave shares it owns. Then, NVIDIA invested $5 billion into new US government investment in Intel. Then in the stock market, NVIDIA and Intel line go up. Then NVIDIA invested $100 billion into OpenAI, which caused NVIDIA stock to go up. Then OpenAI said, actually, we'll give some of NVIDIA's money that OpenAI hasn't received yet back to NVIDIA to lease NVIDIA GPUs. But $100 billion is boring and for poor. So the next day, OpenAI entered a $300 billion agreement with most hated tech company Oracle as part of the Stargate 1 project, and not the kind with MacGyver. And we'll make sure that no intellectual property is safe from ChatGPT's shit posting. NVIDIA investment CoreWeave, which buys NVIDIA GPUs from NVIDIA, then announced an expanded $6.5 billion agreement with OpenAI, bringing their total deal to about $22.4 billion. Meanwhile, UK-based AI infrastructure company Nscale courted others and NVIDIA to raise $1.1 billion and a bottle of liquor. Feeling left out, NVIDIA frenemy and company run by cousin of NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang, AMD, got in on OpenAI, allowing OpenAI to buy up to 160 million shares of AMD stock if OpenAI buys AMD GPUs, which isn't circular at all. Jensen Huang definitely wasn't jealous about his partner's new partner.
It's imaginative, it's unique and surprising. Considering they were so excited about their next generation product, I'm surprised that they would give away 10% of the company before they even built it. And so, anyhow, it's clever, I guess.
Next, OpenAI's Sam Altman returns and this time wants more NVIDIA GPUs, but a week later, OpenAI and Broadcom announced a deal to make custom AI chips. But there's more, as ChatGPT told us, quote, stand by for stupidity, end quote. Elon Musk says XAI isn't raising capital and it's fake news. XAI then raises $2 billion of investment from NVIDIA in Elon Musk's XAI as part of a $20 billion definitely not capital raising deal where XAI, which just received money from NVIDIA, will give money to NVIDIA to lease NVIDIA GPUs from a special purpose pass-through. Except one key thing, which is it didn't just receive the money because most of these deals haven't actually transacted any money yet, and it's all currently hypothetical in a way that makes line go up and seem like the money's transacting, but a lot of times it actually isn't.
We're an investor already. The only regret I have is I didn't give him more money. You know, almost everything that Elon's part of, you really want to be part of as well.
Maybe they bonded over their different methods of cheating at video games. Jensen Huang hand delivers an AI supercomputer to the richest man in the world, perhaps to make up for his lack of XAI investment. The next day, a consortium of NVIDIA and XAI bought a data center company for $40 billion, and also somehow now BlackRock is involved, but that's okay because BlackRock has an excellent track record. Next, Oracle says it'll deploy 50,000 AMD chips starting in 2026, but Oracle already said it'd buy $40 billion of chips from NVIDIA in May for OpenAI data centers. Finally, the most important news of all, OpenAI Sam Altman did the most profitable possible thing that advances any new technology the fastest and said that OpenAI would enable adult content for verified adults, which doesn't at all seem like a future blackmail vector. The good news is that OpenAI already has a user verification process with Persona. The bad news is that their data retention policy is non-specific on how long they keep your data, aside from vaguely stating basically until we don't need it anymore, but don't worry, that's never been a problem before, and connecting an ID to your AI significant other is a good idea that won't be abused in any way and is definitely a healthy thing to do. And just to be clear, a lot of this money hasn't actually changed hands yet, and a lot of the stock and shares haven't changed hands yet either. These are basically a ton of IOUs, but IOUs make line go up, and line go up good. Now we're working on a deeper dive over time with these connections and all these deals, but we're gonna focus on the thing we know the best for this video now that we've established the general timeline of the insanity that is whatever the fuck this is that's going on right now in the technology sector. So, the focus today will be on AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel. These historically have been basically competitors in every way, with the very rare occasional collaboration, but never like what we're seeing today. And it seems like what we have right now is rife with the opportunity to produce price-fixing situations, which we've seen in the tech industry in the past. Memory suppliers have been busted for price-fixing before, colluding with each other to fuck over the consumer, basically, by saying, hey, you know, if we drop our price, then we both have to drop our price, right? So that's what's happened in memory. Our concern is that the situation we have now enables that type of behavior, because you have the three biggest and basically only competitors working with each other in some capacity in these investments. And there's something unsettling about competition uniting and forming basically two fronts now, where it's the consumer and then it's this united coalition of silicon vendors. And in short, everybody seems to be in bed with everybody. And the question we have today is, what the fuck is going on? We self-funded this research project, and this channel thus far has been fully sponsored by you, our viewers. You can support our independent reporting on store.gamersnexus.net or on patreon.com/gamersnexus. Our store is fully stocked with blind eye t-shirts, which have a stylized cyberpunk-style dystopian idiomatic expression printed in Chinese traditional characters to correspond with our deep dive investigation into the black market GPU smuggling topic. These are in stock and shipping now. Our PC building anti-static mod mats are also great work surfaces for those of you building computers, including screw tracking grids, wiring diagrams, and artwork we designed by hand. Of course, if you need a drink after all the AI bullshit, check out our copper-plated stainless steel mule mugs on the store. These come with a logo and thermal conductivity text on the side of the mugs. On that topic, we also have bar runner bar mats on the store with PCIe slots, RAM slots, and low-density PGA sockets shown in them. These are great for your home bar or at the side of the kitchen sink as a drying rack, especially since they're easily washable. Head over to store.gamersnexus.net to support our reporting directly. Let's get back to the program. So it's a corporate threesome that nobody asked for, NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel, and they are now swapping equity and partnerships. And stripping out just the relevant part from our timeline in the intro, it boils down to Intel, the US government, and NVIDIA directly collaborating, with OpenAI creating additional bridges to companies like AMD. Even though this isn't that old, this image is a little out of date now, but it conveys the concept. NVIDIA being in the center of that image from the Financial Times makes sense, considering it reached over $4 trillion of market cap, selling GPUs to several companies on this very chart, including Google, Meta, Microsoft, and Amazon. The way AMD gets linked is via OpenAI, with the two announcing a massive AI GPU partnership where AMD gives OpenAI the option to acquire shares potentially worth over $30 billion. To top it off, AMD is also reportedly in talks to use longtime competitor Intel's fabs to produce chips. So OpenAI really is the basis upon which this circular clusterfuck is founded, and it's what's bringing us the AI Centipede. That's right. Centipede. We already know the AI Centipede exists because NVIDIA's original AI transcription of its 2024 GTC keynote talked about connecting the anus to the Omniverse digital twin. You know, it's really too bad that they fixed that after we caught it and pointed it out the first time, because it added a certain character to the marketing. Now, as we get into this, just a second reminder that a lot of these promises and IOUs are just that. They're promises and IOUs. They haven't transacted yet. But the best example, I think, of what's going on, the shortest one, is the hole digging example that I've seen online, which is you offer me $100 to dig a hole. I offer you $100 to fill that hole. We've both shown $100 of revenue, but there's a step further in this, which is that now, because you've offered me the money to dig it, I've offered you the money to fill it, now neither of us does anything, actually, but we can still show that revenue, and we can use that to shop for investors, and that's what a lot of this feels like right now. So we'll start with the news, which is first, you need to understand that OpenAI isn't profitable. As the show Silicon Valley once said,
why would you go after revenue? Because to make money? No. If you show revenue, people will ask how much, and it will never be enough. But if you have no revenue, you can say you're pre-revenue. You're a potential pure play. It's not about how much you earn, it's about what you're worth. And who's worth the most? Companies that lose money.
OpenAI, which has a private market valuation of approximately $500 billion, announced that it has reached an agreement with AMD to meet milestones enabling the purchase of up to 160 million shares from AMD. This is just a warrant for the shares right now, so it's not executed. If fully executed, that would amount to roughly 10% of AMD. OpenAI says this is, quote, to deploy 6 gigawatts of AMD GPUs based on a multi-year, multi-generation agreement, end quote. To contextualize how much a gigawatt actually is, according to the Department of Energy, a nuclear reactor typically produces about 1 gigawatt of electrical power. Hell, for time travel, not even Doc Brown needed 6 gigawatts.
1.21 gigawatts!
To start, OpenAI and AMD are planning a 1 gigawatt deployment of AMD's Instinct MI450 series GPUs in the second half of 2026. OpenAI's press release reads, quote, "Under this definitive agreement, OpenAI will work with AMD as a core strategic compute partner to drive large-scale deployments of AMD technology, starting with AMD Instinct MI450 series and rack-scale AI solutions and extending to future generations," end quote, and they did not apparently invest in punctuations to form separate sentences. In terms of the economics, the 160 million AMD shares are structured to vest as milestones are met. Now, up until now, NVIDIA has had a stranglehold in the AI market, and it really basically still does for AI GPUs. But until recently, NVIDIA was the key innovator in imaginary revenue generation. Regarding why OpenAI decided to invest so heavily in AMD, CNBC wrote, quote, "The partnership could help ease industry-wide pressure on supply chains and reduce OpenAI's reliance on a single vendor," end quote. That leads to the next part of our story, which is OpenAI's insatiable demand for GPUs, which we think explains some of the inbred relationships you're seeing right now in the tech industry. So, OpenAI CEO and man preparing to reopen Whoville after the Grinch stole Christmas, Sam Altman, recently reacted to the Open and AI collaboration, tweeting this, quote, "Excited to partner with AMD to use their chips to serve our users. This is all incremental to our work with NVIDIA, and we plan to increase our NVIDIA purchasing over time. The world needs more compute. ... All roads really do lead to NVIDIA. They can't even put out a complete, fully formed sentence with subject, verb, and object talking about their AMD investment without mentioning NVIDIA immediately after that. I should say their proposed AMD investment and the mutual co-investing, whatever's going on. NVIDIA has to be mentioned. I don't know, just to make sure the shareholders don't get scared that they're going to switch to AMD or something. Now, let's switch gears here and talk about something near and dear to our hearts. Bloomberg. Hi, Bloomberg lawyers. We'll just wait a second for you to get your copyright strike pages open. You'll want to turn to page 3 and just be prepared to it's basically the same stuff you did last time, okay? All right, now that we're ready. Financial terminal provider and publication excited about finding sand in a Chinese desert, Bloomberg interviewed OpenAI president Greg Brockman, who stated, I just have to interrupt here to say, we're gonna play a clip from an interview on Bloomberg to ensure you have the full context of precisely what the president of OpenAI stated in the words he used, and we are doing this under fair reporting, fair use, to cover the newsworthiness of the topic, okay? All right.
I think that the world continues to underestimate the amount of demand for AI compute.
He's right. He's actually right. It is not compute cheap to produce that amount of seahorse emojis that quickly. Only ChatGPT can do that, and that requires a fuckload of data center power to do that. Okay, well, look, it can do other things too. Brockman claimed that ChatGPT has, quote, 800 million active users weekly, end quote, not counting potentially whatever bots are using it as well. And he also stated that, quote, we're in a position where we cannot launch features, we cannot launch new products simply because we lack computational power, end quote. And now we're going to play another clip from him that's very important. And I just want to include this again for Bloomberg's attorneys who are assholes, that this is a continuation on our existing commentary on in this very piece, the statements that were made in the Bloomberg interview, and it is covered under fair use for newsworthiness and reporting, in addition to all of the other use cases that we've outlined to you previously in our emails from our lawyers. Anyway, OpenAI's needs extend beyond what NVIDIA is currently able to deliver, with Brockman elaborating.
We really think of this as an industry-wide effort. And in general, we think that compute is something that does require the entire supply chain to really wake up and to really to start building much more than people were planning on. And
then, as if Rocco's Basilisk is more than just an internet meme, the actual crazy started.
You can really see that we're very much in we just want compute, as much compute as possible. We think this is important for the economy. We think this is important for the nation. We think this is important for humanity.
The fuck? So to quote Jimmy on our team who watched this clip, who died and made you king of the universe? The companies actually think they are the most important thing for humanity. Now, this is like, it's not just about making money anymore. This is delusional. Let's explore some ways in which OpenAI is improving humanity. Mass layoffs. It's actively causing privacy concerns and collecting identification of what will eventually be the world's best blackmail vector, we think. It's caused proliferation of deepfake manipulation. It's caused untold environmental damage. It's displacing hardworking Americans and people around the world, particularly in rural communities, by raising their costs of electricity and living. It's caused US data centers to use more power than it takes to power literally all of Thailand for an entire year. And it's brought us the most painful presentations of all time.
AI, risk, AI, 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 AI. Let's talk about AI. AI.
So back to Brockman's quote about,
We think this is important for humanity.
we really don't know who made Brockman the president of humanity and the arbiter of good for everyone, but let's just accept the premise. Galactus, Brockman, continued on CNBC, speaking about the AMD partnership to state, quote, "We have to do this. This is so core to our mission. If we really want to be able to scale, to reach all of humanity, this is what we have to do," end quote. Brockman continued, adding,
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
Mark Zuckerberg once popularized the phrase, move fast and break things, and what we may not have known at the time was that one of those things might be civilization. Now, previously, these massive investments like this would be seen as risky, but the phrase too big to fail comes to mind, and that worked out really well in 2000. Okay, but the .com... While OpenAI is a privately held company, AMD's stock shot up 23% after OpenAI revealed that it would acquire up to 10% of the chip maker, eventually maybe. On a similar note, after NVIDIA's announcements of investments into OpenAI and Intel, NVIDIA's market cap climbed hundreds of billions of dollars since those reveals. Now, some of that comes from other factors, like NVIDIA's market upgrade, but there's no doubt that Intel and OpenAI investments were at least a contributing factor. We've reached a point where NVIDIA seemingly acts like the US Treasury. If it wants more money, it can simply announce an unexecuted deal and print some. Personally, I'm looking forward to when Jensen Huang announces that he's purchasing Planet Earth for $500 billion. Now, Intel's stock price also shot up since NVIDIA invested in the company, or at least stated it would, going from $24.90 a share on September 17th prior to the reveal to $37.22 at the time of reporting. This obviously fluctuates daily, but that represents a massive and nearly 50% increase. Now, speaking of NVIDIA, you might think it's interesting that just days after NVIDIA invested in OpenAI and OpenAI committed to buying NVIDIA GPUs, AMD and OpenAI announced their own deal, and you might think maybe this would frustrate NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. And so CNBC asked him if he knew about the deal beforehand, to which Jensen Huang stammered this out.
Did you know about that deal before it was announced?
Not really, but
I don't know what any of that means. It's really a yes or no question. Like, not really. Okay. He continued with this.
I saw the deal. It's imaginative. It's unique and surprising. Considering they were so excited about their next generation product, I'm surprised that they would give away 10% of the company before they even built it. And so, anyhow, it's clever, I guess.
Catty, as Ed Zitron from Better Offline said when he visited us recently. That's a very catty response from Jensen. Now, when asked if AMD's upcoming chips would be able to compete with NVIDIA's, of course, Huang replied, basically no. He said, quote, "Well, you know, our chips are quite special and we're running really fast," end quote. I guess it's not, okay, all right. They're not the most technical audience. That takes us to the next part of our story, which is the AI Centipede. Typically, competition is good for consumers, but we're in an unprecedented state in which companies are either investing directly into their competitors or investing in their competitors through middlemen. NVIDIA invested in OpenAI. OpenAI is investing in AMD. AMD is reportedly eyeing using Intel's fabs. NVIDIA partially owns Intel, which the US government now also partially owns.
There's always a bigger fish.
Or, as users online pointed out, basically this. It shouldn't work. It probably doesn't work. But our guess is that it's going to make some rich people a lot richer. Neuberger Berman analyst Jamie Zakalik stated that the situation is making investors worried about the, quote, circular nature of this deal, goosing up everyone's earnings and everyone's numbers, but it's not actually creating anything, end quote. Now, listen, we're not economists, but you don't have to be to look at 2008 and the dot-com meltdowns and then look at this and say, something doesn't seem right about this. This seems like it could go very poorly for a lot of people, and those people might not be the ones who are involved in the deals. There's a great video by Sasha Yanchin on YouTube that he calls Big Tech is Faking Revenue, and he uses a simple whiteboard illustration to show the concept of round tripping in finance, and it's really well done. We'd recommend watching it if you haven't. The idea, though, seems to be that the same money is being passed around in a way that makes it look like the companies are earning more money than they actually are. And Yanshin explained that OpenAI, NVIDIA, and Oracle are effectively passing money around in a circle. We would agree with that analysis. For example, OpenAI gives money to NVIDIA to buy GPUs. NVIDIA gives that money back to OpenAI as an investment. OpenAI also gives money to Oracle to use their computer space. Oracle turns around and gives money to NVIDIA to buy more chips, which gives money to OpenAI to buy chips, which creates this kind of circle. And it looks like everyone has lots and lots of money, but really it's largely the same money, or at least the same amount of money, going around and around. And again, we'd recommend checking out his video for more of that. But anyway, according to the federalcriminalattorneys.com, which is one hell of a URL for this story, they say, quote, round tripping becomes illegal when it's used to deceive, defraud, or manipulate, end quote. So there's room for it to not technically be illegal, and to explain how they'll get away with it, we'll turn to Carlin.
And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later, because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it.
CNBC commented on the OpenAI AMD situation and wrote, quote, the arrangement between OpenAI and AMD adds a new layer to the increasingly circular nature of AI's corporate economy, where capital, equity, and compute are traded among the same handful of companies building and powering the technology, end quote. We've had monopolies in the past. We've had duopolies, AMD and NVIDIA, for example, in GPU space, with Intel kind of getting in there, but just a little bit. But now NVIDIA's invested in Intel, and it's right when they're getting competitive with their lower-end GPUs, and maybe NVIDIA will keep Intel on the lower end just to make sure they're not too competitive in the wrong places. But anyway, we've had monopolies, we've had duopolies, and we're experiencing weird plutocracies or something. It is no longer the enemy of my enemy is my friend among the big corporate tech companies that we cover. It is seemingly now frenemies with benefits. And we think that's the key to all of this. The massive demand, or at least the perceived and claimed demand for AI-related hardware, is overriding a basic need to compete, at least for the time being. Companies like OpenAI are demanding more GPU pickaxes than any single GPU pickaxe company can create. And it's creating an AI gold rush.
There's so many companies that would like to build, they're sitting on gold mines. Gold mine, gold mine. It's a gold mine, gold mine, gold mine.
The saying a rising tide can lift all boats maybe can be modified here, which is to say that as long as your boat is a multi-billion-dollar yacht, it will be lifted by this rising tide. If you are treading water, you're just part of the displacement that rises that boat. Addressing the competition in the space, AMD CEO Lisa Su stated,
I believe that this is a huge market. We have sized just the AI accelerator TAM being, over $500 billion in TAM over the next few years. I think some might say, maybe I was a little conservative in that TAM analysis.
So Su is stating $500 billion of addressable market in this interview with, who was it? So she's saying $500 billion for TAM. Maybe that's true, but that money is getting extracted from normal people one way or another, because a lot of this seems imaginary to me. Lisa Su, alongside basically all the other tech executives, has recently made trips to visit the White House to join its circle of self-congratulatory handshakes, as have the likes of Zuckerberg and Jensen Huang, showing us that they're all playing the same game. The game is siphoning money into fewer hands, with the side effect of allegedly propping up the US economy's growth figures almost entirely on their own in the AI industry. On OpenAI's side, we surmise that they have an unquenchable thirst for GPUs and don't want a single bottleneck, so they're trying to diversify. It kind of reminds us how IBM didn't want to be too reliant on Intel for x86 processors in the 1980s, which represented a single bottleneck. This eventually paved the way for AMD to get access to the x86 license. NVIDIA and AMD seem to be willing to trade capital and equity for guaranteed successes to be part of the future that they think is AI. Again, at least for the time being. And as far as we can tell, there doesn't seem to be any end in sight for growth, artificial or not. OpenAI has revealed plans to build a 250 gigawatt data center by 2033 in what's estimated to cost $12.5 trillion. The people have a hard time fathoming a million, let alone a billion, but to help contextualize how much $12.5 trillion is, that's over a third of the entire United States 2024 GDP. Or 8.3 trillion Costco hot dog and soda combos. That's, at some point, it's really got to be enough to actually end world hunger. Now, in terms of what the future may look like, Sam Altman's ambition is to make Earth resemble like the Death Star from space or something with all of the forthcoming data centers.
I do guess that a lot of the world gets covered in data centers over time.
OpenAI CEO Sam Altman has previously stated that he hopes AI can help humanity crack the nuclear fusion problem to generate more energy. On a podcast, the OpenAI CEO was asked if he's working on investing in nuclear fusion, and Altman replied with this.
We are, and I think AI can help us figure it out even faster. So that's like if you have to like burn a little bit more gas in the short term, but you figure out, the future of energy with that AI, it's a huge win.
So building on that quote, the solution to dig ourselves out of this energy crisis is to dig deeper, and then hopefully we'll find the right solution. And while competition is good for the consumer, co-opetition is not. And that's kind of where we are right now. This is a strange new world where the companies making the pickaxes have realized that even between them, they can't make enough pickaxes. And as long as they can keep that demand inflated for those pickaxes, it might actually be more profitable for them to work with each other than it is for them to work against each other. And that should be concerning for just about everybody. The fact that their customers, though, not us, not the loser consumers, but the big B2B customers, the fact that they are also in bed with those suppliers who should be competitors, that's where it gets really troubling. And we end up with this weird dystopian AI plutocracy or something. Just don't expect any of them to pass any of the savings on to you. It's probably increasing prices. We've already seen it in RAM, where system memory has gone up 40 to 50%, sometimes double with some SKUs, to 100% over just the last couple months alone. Literally in a span of a single month, several kits for DDR5 6000 2x16 gigabyte kits, those have gone up by like 40 to 50% in a month. And the demand for DRAM and flash and data centers is driving a lot of that, with new agreements for the Stargate project seeking to use 40% of the global memory supply. That's insane. And that's already affected consumer pricing, and it's going to keep going. So anyway, there's a lot more to follow here. We'll keep digging into it. But as Jensen Huang once said,
I just need a human to talk to.
That's it for this one. Thanks for watching. As always, hopefully that recap at least gets you up to speed. You can go to store.gamersnexus.net to support our reporting directly. We need your help to fund this project on the GNCA channel, because at least thus far, all of the ads we've done have been for our own store and Patreon. And we'll see if we can continue the project in this way. But my hope is we can keep self-funding this, and we need the community's help to do that, because we've got a whole team working on this stuff in addition to what we're doing at GN. So you can go to the store, grab a t-shirt, grab one of our coaster packs. We have mouse mats that are available, and mod mats for PC building, soldering mats if you do projects, even just for crafting or painting or something. They're a great work surface for that because they're silicone, so easy to clean. You can grab those on the store. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more on this channel. We'll see you all next time.